Okay, guys. So, for our last talk of the day, José Nogueira from YLD. Give him a big round of applause, please.
Thank you. So I wanted to talk today to you about remote work. Especially in tech, it's one area where it's growing a lot. Most of the work I do is remote, if not 100%. So my name is José Nogueira. You can reach me at Ze@YLD, GitHub, Twitter. I want to see a show of hands. Who's working remote or has worked remote? All right. Who thinks remote is positive for the companies? Remote work, right? Who thinks remote work is bad for company productivity? All right. Two people, all right? It's good. Actually, there's this perception that remote workers just aren't there. They cannot be reached. It's like a stickboard figure that you think it's there, but it's not, and sometimes the work just happens to be done. But in reality, remote workers do work a lot. Some of them just work and sleep. This is true. But that's not how you want to do it. And I'm going to go through it with you. The thing is, almost every job nowadays can be done remotely. In fact, if you have a desk and a computer, you can work remotely. Sometimes you don't even need a computer to work remotely. Remote workers do communicate a lot to be successful. If you want to do proper remote work, you can't be just a cardboard figure that's not there. You have to control your own work schedule, and in fact, most people tend to be more productive. There's studies done, and people agree that on a lot of studies that have been done, and people say that 70% of people consider themselves to be more productive when working at home. So it's not negligible. And in the end, remote work saves companies money, gets more work done because you are more productive, and makes employees happier because you also have the control of your workflow and your life. But let's get into some numbers. Like I said, almost every work can be done remotely, and we can see here, I'm not sure if you can read, but there's many industries here, from transportation to arts to finance, insurance, law, engineering, manufacturing or construction, healthcare. For instance, doctors nowadays, they do online consultations to their patients. Then the patient goes and does an exam. The exam results, or the exam itself, goes to another doctor who's remote. He'll go over the exam at his home, then send it back to another doctor that will approve it, then send it to the first doctor, and then they can have another remote appointment. So most of it is remote. It's just the patient that goes to the machine. Done. And truth is, nowadays people do more remote work than ever, and this is a trend. This was a study conducted in the United States, but the numbers for the rest of the world should be pretty similar. Prior to 2012, or in 2012, we can see that most of the work was less than 20%, which means 0 or half a day working remote from home. And you see that the rest of the graphic goes up to 2016. It's most the same, and the slice of the pie that gets more people now is working remote 4 to 5 days a week, which again is not negligible, and it just shows the trend to start having more people working remote. And this is mostly associated with increasing productivity while lowering the cost of the work. But it's not without its problems, right? You're working from your home or from a coffee or a co-work, and you need human interaction. So for most of the people, and this comes from the study, and for me, it's the same. You get to the right place of your remote working, you are more productive when you work 3 to 4 days from home a week. So this for me is true. I like to be around people, so I found out that I'm more productive working from home now, but it's very good to go to the office once or twice a week and recharge, be with people, go for a beer afterwards, or not, but just being there, the water cooler conversation, it's important. There's a lot of types of remote work. I had an amazing GIF here, but it's not showing. And you can do it from everywhere, mostly, as long as, if it's true that if your job is at a desk with a computer, then it's also true that as long as you have wireless and a computer, you can do remote work. And it was sort of the GIF that I wanted to show, but this is the idea. Why is this not showing? This is very important. Yeah. All right. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why these images are not loading, but I really. So this is the remote working scale. So from 0 to fully remote, there's a scale of models in which you can work on. So we start by full office, and there's no remote there. You have to go to the office every day. Maybe if you get lucky, you can take some work home and deliver it the next day. Then you have the optional remote work, and this is the situation where your employee allows you to, from time to time, work from home. This is a bad situation from my experience, because even though it's optional, it's not that optional. You cannot do more than once a week. If you start doing twice a week, people will be not happy with you. So it's not truly remote in the sense that you can increase and actually do remote work. Afterwards, you have one remote team. Having one remote team means that you'll have to be able to coordinate with that team. And you can have two types here. You can have the remote team that's just providing you with a service or a product, and you just want to make sure that that service is working in the morning when you start working. Or you can have part of your team working remotely, and then you have to coordinate with them. From here, we start moving into more distributed work models, in which, for instance, we can have multiple time zones. You can have no offices, or not, and have 2-3 teams across the globe. So you'll have one team that's working in India, you have one team that's working in San Francisco, one team that's working in Berlin, and one team that's working from Lisbon, all of them for the London office, for instance. So here, we have to assume that we cannot always be overlapping the work schedule of everyone. No one will be able to, or we won't be able to have everyone working the 8 hours together. So here is when we really have to be mindful that we are really doing remote work only. Because even though we might have a physical office, we need to be sure that we're doing remote first. And that's the problem with many companies, that they start getting into this threshold, but they do not assume that they're doing remote first. But we'll get there. So to here, what the companies need to do is adapt. So they assume they will not be working in the same schedule. They assume they will not be working together. So they have to document everything. I need to be able to start in the morning, wherever I am, and pick up from the last team or wherever I need to pick up. Every person's work should be and must be documented. This way I can know where we're at the project, what that person has done, if I am depending on work that he or she has done. And then we have the last model, or the epitome of remote work, which is remote work with nomads. So this will happen when you have people working remotely, which are also nomads. So you're counting on someone's work, and today he'll be in San Francisco, tomorrow he'll be in Nicaragua, and the next day he will be Buenos Aires, stay for a week, and then move for 3 months to Asia. So you need to be really remote first, assuming that everything needs to be documented, everything needs to be strict, so that we can work, and we can work from the work that everyone else has done. So when I wrote this, I started with advantages and disadvantages. Truth is, after thinking a bit about it, there's no obvious disadvantage or real, I would say, real disadvantage to remote work. So I called it adaptations, because, like I said, there's a transition that needs to be done. The company needs to do mentality and culture shift, first and foremost. There will be a transition period. So imagine we were working in that search situation I was mentioning. We have a team or part of the team working remotely, and people forget they're working with remote people. So they need to do this mentality shift. You're doing a meeting. People are drawing stuff on boards, on whiteboards. People are putting post-it notes on the wall. People are talking, and the computer is the only mic that's on the room and turned to a wall, and that's all you see, a wall, and you hear some sound in the background. That's not how we need to do. So this mentality shift and this transition period need to occur, should be fast, but technically and normally it lasts forever, and it's a very hard adaptation for most companies. For companies, they need to accept that employees are off-site. There's this managerial habit of going to people and grab them by the arm and, hey, we need to have a meeting now. This cannot happen with remote work. People need to make these adaptations. You want to have a meeting, let's schedule, let's do it online. We have to respect the protocol first. There's someone else on this meeting, and that person is remote, but I'm here at the office with you. We don't talk in the hallway. We don't talk at my desk. We go to a chat room, a Skype, or wherever, and we have that meeting there. Everyone needs to be part of the loop. Start whiteboard, like I was saying. That's for me the hardest thing. Sometimes you need to cooperate, and you want to be drawing at the same time and discussing an architecture or something. This is the hardest part. But there's really good software solutions in the internet nowadays. So advantages, right? Reduced costs. If you're reducing on office space or office estate at all, there's a lot of reduced costs. If you're hiring contractors, normally remote workers are cheaper than people at the office. There's an increased worker productivity and satisfaction because they have the control and they know when to work and when to rest, instead of having to oblige to the 9 to 6 work schedule. And if you do it properly, you get better documentation because everything is documented. And later on, you know where things are, which a lot of times doesn't happen. You have a bigger talent pool available, which is awesome because there's a lot of really good developers that won't even consider work at the office, or at least not full time. So by allowing to work with remote people, you have this access to bigger talent pool. You have an improved company culture because people will learn to respect boundaries. People will learn to keep documentation, to keep in sync with each other. They know that there's a time to work, there's a time to party. It's more compartmentalized, organized. This is really good. And this is another thing that's very good for companies. The last point is there's less turnover. By statistics, remote workers tend to stick longer with the companies they work for. So for companies, it's really hard in the tech scene or to hire at a rate that sometimes they need if they need to grow really fast. And with bigger retention, this is much easier. For us, there's also adaptations. It's harder to communicate. We need to make an effort. Things don't happen by themselves. You don't go get a coffee and meet the person you need to talk to and just sort some office issue and a code issue, whatever. You need to actively engage with that person, make sure that they've seen your message, make sure that they will do something about it, and make sure that's in a respectable deadline for you. So it's complicated. Sometimes it's harder to socialize with the team. Naturally, if you're not on site, you can't just close your computer and say, oh, let's go for a football game, right? It's hard to get started when you on your first day, on your first week working remotely. If you go from working at the office every day and then you go home, you'll find out that your house has amazing stuff, like for instance, TV, PlayStation, just looking at the street. When you don't want to work, just looking at the street is amazing because things happen outside, you know. There's also a burnout risk. And this happens like on that slide that was showing before. Some people, because they really love what they're doing, they tend to work on their work, and then they work on their personal projects, and then they work some more because they want to do some testings with some new technology, and at the end they work 16 hours a day, and after 2 months they just can't process anything else or anything anymore in the brain. They're just so tired. So you need to take care of yourself. Burnout is a risk, and it's real. More advantages for you. You have less stress. You don't have to commute to work, which studies indicate that it's like 90% of your daily stress causes. There's a reduced cost. You can eat at home. You don't need to do the commute and pay for the gas or the public transportation. There's less office distractions. So when you're at the office and the Nerf gun war starts, you'll be working. You won't be there. And this is something very real. There was this client I've been working at locally. I was there in the offices, and we had this huge room where we would do Nerf gun wars, but that's not the point. The thing is, we have there lots of lines with lots of developers, and 90% of the developers have noise-canceling headphones. This means something. People at the office, they need their quiet space. They need to cut out the office distractions and the noise. So this is very real. We need some space for ourselves, and this is good to be at home, and you just turn off the notifications and you'll work for the next 2 hours without anyone bothering you. Then you get increased productivity. You organize your work your way. This is very good. For instance, if you want to go pick up the kids from the school, or if you need to go to a doctor's appointment, or the gym, or just want to sleep after lunch, then you work a little bit afterwards. This leaves you more time for family and friends. Because you're better balanced, this tends to translate into less sick days, and this is true. There's statistics on this, and you'll have more time to develop new skills. If you can do your work, your 8-hour work in 4, you can work 4 more hours before doing 8 hours of work per day. I didn't say this. So there's something wrong with this. It's really bad. It's a shame. So here I have a GIF with Homer Simpson and remote work, and he's very fat. So this is a risk. We need to take care of ourselves. And real-life remote work has a lot of perks and a lot of responsibility associated. Sometimes it feels like this, that unfortunately it doesn't load. This GIF is amazing. I'm really sad about this. Sorry, can I get someone to try to reload here, refresh the page, or... Sorry, I don't work with... wait. I don't work with Windows, and we had the problem with the connector. So, what I meant is that remote working can sometimes feel like this. You are on a beach, going on an amazing jump, and he's going to jump into the water. So what I mean here is this is like an analogy. You can do it anywhere. You can do it on the beach. I've worked in Costa Rica at the beach, and I would be literally 10 feet from the water. I would surf in the morning, go back to work, go surf after work, go for cocktails and drinks. Next day, the same. Amazing. You can control your workflow. Unless you have some pressing meetings you really need to attend to, you can decide to take out a block of 2 or 3 hours and then just work, and then do a pause, and then come back. And if you work at night, because some people work much better at night, I prefer to work in the morning, but if you work better at night and you have a proper remote work environment, you can start working at 8 in the afternoon. Who cares? The work will be done next day, and everything will be logged, and you get everything done at your own rhythm. You can travel the world, like I said, Costa Rica, Asia, whatever. And you can increase your revenue. Because you get more productive, because your skills increase over time, you can apply for better jobs, and probably you will have a better career progression. So it's not for everyone. That's the truth. You need to get used to it. It requires proactivity. Like I said, you don't want to depend on other people to engage you. You need to engage people. You need to make sure things happen at the workplace. Teams, when you have remote working teams, they require an extra communication. You need to communicate with this person, that person, the other person, your manager. Make sure that the information goes to everyone. Sometimes you can use a shared chat. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you need to go to all of these people. So it requires proactivity and engagement on your behalf. And you need to take extra care of yourself. Like I said, you don't want to spend all day at home just working and sleeping, working and sleeping. It won't get you good results. I can promise you that. It's a daily struggle, to be honest. I'm not sure if I'm passing the idea that it's really easy to do, it's really fun. It's a daily struggle. Sometimes when you start a new project, they don't have credentials for you. They don't have accesses for you to the VPN. They don't have access for you to the GitHub repo. You can't. You need to talk with this person that will talk to the other person to get you access to the GitHub repo. And this is just the easy version. Sometimes you can go months without getting calendar invites for meetings, and then you have to ask every day, excuse me guys, do you have any scheduled meeting for today? Because they couldn't properly configure it. Day-to-day work is sometimes a struggle. Like I mentioned before, you might have meetings that are happening in the hallways. You have meetings where people are pointing the camera at the wall. You need to remind people that you are there. You have meetings where if you don't say a word, the meeting will start and it will end, and no one will ask you your opinion. No one will ever remember that you were on that meeting. And so if you want to contribute, if you want to do your work right, you need to engage. When finishing a project, you will need to do a handover of the knowledge, right? What happens is most of the times people don't do regular documentation on day-to-day work. So at the end, sometimes it happens that they will tell you, okay, so we don't want to see you, we don't want to hear from you for a week. Just do documentation for everything that you've worked from the beginning of the project until now. So there's a lot of struggle in there. You need to make sure that you can help the company in that mentality shift. Then you'll have it easier on your daily struggle, but it's not without difficulties. Some resources to give you a better perspective and to get you more engaged. There's this talk, Why Work Doesn't Happen at Work. The premise being, whenever you're sitting on a deadline and you really need to finish things, it's normal that you just pack your things, you get out of the office, and you go somewhere else but the office to finish that work. When you really need to do work, a lot of work in a small amount of time, you get out of the office. And that's human nature, and you do it instinctively. And that's why remote work allows you to have that more controlled and with better results and have it easier. Have the 4-hour work week, which is a book I cannot recommend enough. The idea is that you either start working more remote more often, so try to go from 0 to 5 days a week. Make sure that you try to get some passive income, but that's other part of the book. But like a solid third of the book is on working remote and strategies to get more work remote. So I really recommend, and it's an amazing book to read when you're younger. So I really recommend it. There's this book also by Jason Fried and David Hansen, which is Remote, Office Not Required. It talks about these situations that I've talked in much more detail and in a much more organized way, I would say. So it's good to get an idea and to get into. There's nomadlist.com, which is a site with a listing with almost every location in the world and an analysis on internet speed, average cost of living, average rent, average meal. So it gives you an idea. If you were to travel while working, I could be there and spend $1,000 a month, and then if I go to somewhere else, I will spend $800. You get the cost of living, and you get a picture of how you could do there. RemoteOK.io is remote first jobs listing. So it's like any jobs platform or portal, but only with remote jobs. So hope I was not too boring. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions.
Okay, so any questions, just raise your arm. I'll give you a mic.
Hello. First of all, nice presentation.
Thank you.
I would like to ask you, how is the acceptance in Portugal for remote work?
Well,
Or, yeah.
Portugal, we do a lot of nearshoring for companies, which is producing code for countries where the rates are higher. So there's a lot of people working remote in Portugal for companies in the UK, in the US, and from my knowledge, we have some opening. So all that is nearshoring is open to remote work. Some other companies they are transitioning, but there are already a lot of companies that just operate in Portugal that have a lot of remote work. Okay.
Okay, next question. Anyone else? Okay. So José will be available at the showcase outside. If you guys have any questions or just want to chat with him,